Welcome to the Social Priority Podcast here on Star Panda TV. I'm your host, Star Panda, and today we'll be talking about the housing market and the housing crisis today. But first, I'd like to introduce my guest, a Twitch political streamer, TinaToo. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to be here. We've delayed this conversation for far too long.
Yeah, it's been a while, but we finally did it.
We finally did it. I was feeling dog shit today, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. It's about time.
Well, I appreciate you sticking through it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel better since this morning, so that's a benefit. But I would have done it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really hope you would take care of yourself first. So
I did. This morning, I took care of myself.
Oh, good.
That's enough for me. Give me 5 hours to take care of myself.
Perfect. So
but, yeah.
How did you get into streaming politics and all that?
Actually, I have always been kind of a lit, I've always been, when I was growing up, I, had, very, I would say shallow feminist ideas because I didn't know where else to go. Like, growing up, I was just like, oh, women are objectified and we don't get paid that much. And I didn't have other outlets other than that. So unfortunately, it stayed very shallow until I was 22 when I met a boyfriend at the time who got me heavily into the Palestinian apartheid. And that's when I just sunk deeper and deeper into politics. And then I've always been interested in it, but there was never space for it, I felt, on Twitch. And up until the 2019 election, Canadian election, with Justin Trudeau, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go for it. It was really scary for me, I remember at the time, because I was like, I could either lose the 5 people who showed up constantly for my video game streams, or this could be really good for me, So I just was like, screw it. And that was the first thing I covered politics wise.
Oh, wow.
Was the elections, because I'm just gonna do it. And I think that was the first time one of the bigger streamers within that sphere showed up. I don't know if you've heard of him, Turing News.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he doesn't stream anymore, but he's met some of the big boys, like Dylan Burns and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
So that was my first introduction into Twitch politics, and it was a very warm welcome. I was very happy at the time to be part of that community.
Did you do any collaborations or debates in that community?
I tried to do oh my god. I tried to do one debate. I forget the streamer and the name of the debate, but it was one of the debate streamers who tried doing an all-female panel. And I hated it. I just was like, I fucking despise this so much, because it's just you just feel everyone is just being, or the opposing side is just being contrarian just for the entertainment value of it.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so and you just knew that the other people were just disagreeing with you for to continue this show, essentially. And it just was it felt so inauthentic to me that I was just that was the first and last time I debated ever on panels. I'll go on discussion panels, but I hated debate panels, and I'm glad that they're over.
Yeah, certain debate panels, especially if it's with certain political streamers who do it more for the drama, definitely don't really give much in productivity. We'll get a bunch of people together and we'll talk about problems and how much of a problem they are, but never the solutions to those problems.
Yep.
And if it is about a solution, it'll be like, I don't know, like uh a completely insane solution that will probably not work in a
I
million
remember
years.
the only debate panel I was on was like they got into the final topic was like, should we something like mitigate free speech? And then there were like some free speech absolutists on there, and I'm like, this is insane. Why are we just like I understand like free speech has been um determined by the ruling class and that it's ruined like leftist movements, but like you can have an opinion and also diversify that opinion. And what I mean by that is like you can say you're not for free speech for a certain type of person, and that certain type of person can be fucking Nazis. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay to say you don't like free speech. I hate these absolutists because those people are so they're so hacky to me.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of those people who are absolutists with free speech don't really care about the other side too much. Like they'll
No,
advocate
yeah.
for limiting their free speech, even though like they're an absolutist in every other sense of the word. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
completely get where you're coming from on
Yeah.
that.
And it's okay to come off as a hypocrite. That's my hot take. It's okay. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I'm kind of curious. What are your thoughts on Trudeau since you are in Canada?
Ooh, this is a good question. So he was our Obama, right?
Mm.
He was our like he literally hired the same people for his campaign that Obama had.
He was black,
Um
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He is. By the way, is my audio good?
Yeah, I think it cut out when you were laughing though.
Yeah, it's I'm still trying to figure out my setup. I apologize.
That's okay.
Oh, fuck. That was a good one. Um he really showed like in the beginning he was very much about like, you know, literally helping find all the missing and murdered indigenous people, you know. That was one of the first things. And then also another thing he promised was um getting clean water to the oh my god, to the reservations.
Hmm.
That was like another huge thing, and it I think about 2 years into um his first not
Term.
semester, what's it called again?
A term.
A term, yeah. He bought he bought a pipeline for like $1 billion, and that's when I was like, oh no,
That was the XL pipeline, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's when I like it clicked for me. I was like, this guy's a fucking hack, you know?
Yeah.
And then he would turn around and say, um, and say stuff like, "Oh, we need to buy more oil so we can fund green energy." And it's like, you're not even doing that though. Like, what green energy are you putting this money into?
That sounds
Like,
counterproductive.
it absolutely is, and he kept doing it and doing. I think he's dropped that talking point now,
Hmm.
but he's a massive disappointment, and the only progressive things he's done are because of pressure from the NDP, because he's been in a minority government for the past 3-4 years around, so he's had to listen to the NDP. That's the reason why we got $2,000 a month checks for like 9 months or something.
Ooh.
Um, and just been pretty much like he's like a failure. I feel like extremely disappointed because the only reason people keep voting for him is because they're afraid of a conservative government. The same thing that happens in America, you know.
Yeah.
They don't want. But I think, you know, in the coming elections, you know, we might have a super fashy leader, Pierre Poilievre. So it's like if we don't if I don't know. Anyway, I don't like Justin Trudeau. Sorry.
Yeah, we have some of the similar problems. Like people are afraid
Yeah.
of more fascist governments, especially
Yeah.
right after Trump. Where I feel like people are a lot more aware of it, but like right after sort of a fascist adjacent person in government, and like all of these people in government currently who seem to be trying to make the government more fascist, it
Yeah.
is getting to be to that point to where like you don't know what's going to happen if that one like lib shitty kind of person like Biden actually doesn't win. So like
Yep.
it feels like people are forced into voting for him even though they don't like him.
Yeah,
So,
like a gun to your head.
yeah, basically. Let's go ahead and move on to our topic before we get a little bit more like off
Yeah.
into the
I'm
the
just
political
one big
sphere.
Chatty Cathy.
So is there anywhere you in particular you wanted to start?
I mean, other than like rent, there's not, rent, housing. It's all kind of plummeting. It's both. It's plummeting in the sense that it's become way too expensive for people. Now we see like, we can start with rent.
Yeah, we can. Okay. So there seems to be this issue in both America and Canada where I don't know as much about Canada, but I can tell you for sure that in America we have like rent going up so much, like right after the whole government, basically like our economy shutting down because of COVID. It's ramping back up, but the rent prices have not gone down at all. In fact, they've been increasing by a lot, and people have not been able to keep up with those rising rent prices. And indicatively, the wages have not gone up much. Like some businesses are going up
Yeah.
to like 15 an hour, but rent is going up so much that wages are not keeping up with it, even
Yeah.
though like we've been fighting for this $15 an hour wage.
It has to be like 30 now. It's like insane. 15 was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This is not a win, unfortunately, I think.
I mean, people
Well,
back then were saying we should have it at 20, which
yeah.
at this point, that's probably not even enough because the rent is so high. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So I get so first of all, I'm going to start off by saying, so Canada has probably two of the most expensive cities to rent in the world. I think I think Toronto might be a little bit more than LA, if not par with LA prices. It's absolutely disastrous here. You have average 2K a month. And I get emails. I'm subscribed to a one of those, I get like multiple updates a day of like, here's what's for rent. And it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. You either get like one room with a fridge in it and a hot pot for like $990,
Yeah.
or you get one bedroom, one bathroom for like 22K or 2.2K. 2200.
Yeah.
And it's like it's completely unlivable. Like what are we doing? It's like you can feel people suffocating under the weight of this housing crisis. And our central bank is trying to ease the cost of housing for purchasing a house by raising interest rates, but that is only making renting so much more difficult because you have these landlords whose mortgages are coming up soon, because I think you have to. I'm not a house purchaser by any means, but I think in Canada every 5 years you have to um redo your mortgage.
Hmm.
And I think for a lot of homeowners, they're having to redo their mortgage in the next year or so, or even like couple months. And that is going to affect a lot of um, renters,
Right.
because these landlords, and even landlords who, let's be honest, even landlords who don't have that coming up are going to turn around and use that as an excuse anyway. They're going to be like, oh, interest rates are rising. It's like at something 3%. It's above 3% now. It's going to do some horrible things to renters. People are just, it's all of Canada has become immensely unlivable, and it's just completely devastating. Just no help, and our government is doing so little other than interest rates. Trudeau has this plan to do rent to own, but I don't think it's even started yet. Because I want to look into it, because I want to do rent to own, and I don't even know how he's gonna initiate it. I don't even. So, that might this a federal program of rent to own might help. We need to see how this turns out, but it's an absolute crisis. It's like and most of our economy, I think, like the third biggest economy in Canada is housing. Could be wrong. So, which is one of the worst things you can do, because housing can collapse. It's not a viable source for a country's economy.
Right. Yeah. So on the topic of renting, uh, I have been listening to a few videos about the whole housing crisis and specifically on affordable housing, because this has become a major problem, especially
Yeah.
around like I don't know if you have mobile homes in Canada.
We do.
Uh, well, here in America, we have those mobile homes in like trailer parks and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
yes. Oh
yeah,
my god.
and I think a lot of those trailer parks have been bought up recently by those bigger corporations who then, after they're bought up, raise those rents. And considering that these people who are low income have bought their homes that are like mobile homes that cost thousands of dollars to move, uh, they can't move because and
Oh, are you talking about how they rent out the land underneath the mobile home?
yes, they buy the
That's
land
so
underneath the
insane.
mobile home and then charge them rent to stay there. And if they can't
There's
pay that rent, then they have to leave and leave their mobile home because it costs too
Yeah,
much to move.
and that's the purpose. That's what they want.
Yeah.
There's a fantastic, for all of your listeners and even you, there's a fantastic book from 2011 called Evicted, which a journalist follows both um tenants and landlords. And I forget where it was specifically, but it is one of the most harrowing and raw looks at the American housing crisis and how it's been for the last probably 20, 30 years. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's called Evicted, and it's such a brutal look. And that's one of the first things that got me so deep into caring about housing was just like reading this book and just being like, oh my god, there's 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 no regulations, and the government doesn't give a shit about tenants at all. It's just such a raw look. And most listeners, and maybe even you, I don't know, have experienced that?
Experienced what in particular?
Oh, sorry, like Horton, like um slumlords kind of thing.
Um, kind of.
Yeah.
I actually
I
had a
didn't
pretty
finish
good
that sentence. I'm
experience.
sorry.
I actually had a pretty good experience with a slumlord,
Oh,
because
oh God, thank God.
yeah, right. It was very unexpected, but like I can imagine people going through some really bad experiences, because like it could have easily gone like really poorly in my instance, but I
Yeah.
was one of the lucky few where like my landlord was very like helpful and didn't raise my rent randomly, and she was very upfront with everything. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, I completely understand what you're getting at.
There was it would he would follow certain tenants as they got kicked out from one house to another, and there were some tenants were so desperate that they would just rent out a house from a slumlord with like a hole in the living room.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely insane just how and then that's the book where I first learned that the UN considers parts of America uh housing in parts of America to be a third world country.
Yeah, I heard about that. I
Yeah.
think it was like a an investigator who from, I guess, Australia, I want to say, was basically uh by the UN told to go to America and investigate these communities. I think one of them was in Alabama, and
Yeah.
basically he found that yeah, they were basically living in a third world kind of scenario. Like there were uh bad pipelines.
Uh-huh.
They were getting diseases that only really happen in world countries,
Yeah.
so it didn't make any sense that this would be happening in America, but it does. So
Oh
like
yeah. What was it, Boston that has E. coli in their water now?
I
Just came out?
I don't know in particular, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like
Yeah.
in America, we have so many problems with our water, like especially in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Like you hear about Flint, like where
Oh,
they still don't have like very clean water. Um, they are finally like getting their pipes like replaced all over Michigan, but like the water problem has been a problem all over the state. And I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if it's been like a countrywide problem at this point.
Oh, it absolutely is. Your infrastructure. So like I think most of America's infrastructure is that's another thing I'm obsessed by infrastructure.
Hmm.
It's one of the most vital parts of like city building I would say even community building, because how you build your infrastructure could totally help build communities and so on and so forth. But like most of America's infrastructure, if not like a high majority, was built post World War II and has not been updated since, which is crazy to think about.
That is crazy, yeah. Like you'd think we would have updated everything by now, but
Yeah,
uh
it's and that's the you look at fucking politicians like Mitch McConnell when they say that it's completely unaffordable. Like how much do these, like, if you look back post World War II, that would have been unimaginable to say that building, roads and bridges was too much money. Like what an insane comparison. Like you look post World War II, where they were building like they were building subways um and roads and bridges and telecommunications and now you have politicians on the right who are just like, that is those politicians would never have allowed America to grow in the first place. Just like an
Mhm.
absolutely insane uh tactic from these people. They're like, who's paying you, bitch? Who's paying you?
Yeah. It's it's been a big problem lately. Um, like these rents, they've just it's been so bad. I think the main problem with the rents going up has been like these bigger companies buying up all of these areas, like
Oh.
basically like vacant homes or like homes for sale, like they're buying them all up.
Yes. So I don't know if
Yeah,
you heard about the Zillow stuff. That
I did hear about that. Yeah.
So for your listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about, they stopped doing it because it made them it made them go bankrupt. So they had to sell off all their stock. But their plan was to buy like blocks of houses, um,
And then
and
rent them out, right?
fix them up
Yeah.
and sell them for like a higher price, like 200K more around. And then they also plan to have a um through through selling, oh my, what was it, something about, they had a loan, they were creating a like a housing loan company
Hmm.
through them, so you could only their plan was to only have people get housing loans and mortgages through them.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then it didn't work. But you have companies like, I always mix it up. I think it might be BlackRock.
It,
Um,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
who it's an equity firm which does that. They're the largest. I think BlackRock or Blackstone is the largest landlord in all of America. Um, and it's the fact that we allow private companies to purchase homes is just but like if you think about it, it's insane. It's like, absolutely, why are we letting these multi-billion-dollar companies own homes? Why?
And also on top of that, like I've heard in that situation where they're buying up homes and fixing them up, they're like not even selling them, they're renting them out. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's ridiculous
That's
cuz
what I'm
like
saying. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
And they're so oh, they're so I think it's, what's the word, cash heavy, where they've spent so debt, they're so debt heavy that because they've spent all this money on purchasing homes, that they're so overloaded with debt that they just um they have more debt than they do have, for now. They have more debt than they do have cash flow. And this, I haven't researched BlackRock in a long time, so this is off the top of my head. But it's um the purpose is to make us all renters. Essentially, they want to buy. If it were up to Blackstone, we would all be renters.
I
They
think it's
don't want, the end goal of these companies, these multi-billion-dollar companies, is to make us all permanent renters and for them to own every single home. And it should be outlawed. It should be absolutely outlawed for any company to purchase a home. And something else. So you have, so on one hand you have these these big companies doing like being massive landlords, and on the other hand you have the little mom and pa landlords
mhm.
who are doing this sneaky thing. This is really fucked up. So people will notice empty houses on their road, in their neighborhood, in their community. And what landlords tend to do is they will buy, some of them will buy like 3 4 houses, right, whether it be on the same block or separate from each other, and they will leave it empty. because here's where they get their money. They get their money through one, um, tax returns. If they say on the tax form that they weren't able to make an income that year because they couldn't find a renter, oh no, they couldn't find a renter. It was just so hard. They can get money for that. And then the second thing is the most fucked up thing. Some of those landlords make more fucking money through application fees than they do renting. So they will leave the house empty and A, get money from tax returns, and B, just rake in cash from application fees.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't even know how to process that, because like I
Yeah.
never thought
Yeah.
that was like a huge deal that they had an application fee, but like if they're getting that much money without
Yeah.
actually renting it out with those application fees, that's ridiculous.
It's criminal. And then they can leave because of that. They're allowed to leave it empty for an entire fucking year. Well, they put it. It's like some of that shit is literally a scam. Some of the stuff you see, the those landlords will put those uh posts up. Be like, oh, this is a one bedroom, one bathroom for blah blah blah, blah a month, and you're like, okay, cool, and the application fee is like $50 to like $100. I've
Yeah.
heard of upwards of 150. Um, and just imagine, okay, that landlord can take that down and put that back up as many times as they want. Okay, and on top of that, you have everyone's looking for a home. Everyone, you know, constantly because people are getting kicked out or they're leaving because their landlord's holding a gun to their head and saying, we're gonna raise your rent. So you either pay more or get the fuck out. So there's people, and it's because it's an inelastic demand, they're going to find that post and be like, okay, that's cool. The application fee is $50. Now imagine how many people a week, a month would apply to that. Easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really awful the
Yeah.
way our system works. Like,
It's like some of those posts are a scam. And Demon Mama did some posts about it too when she was going through looking for a new place. How, some of these you know renting posts are just 100% a scam.
yeah,
And you don't know. You just don't know. Like you have to apply. You have to spend money to apply to these places. It's insane. And then they do a credit check, and then that's another thing. Fuck a credit check on your on trying to rent a place. Cuz that shit makes you have a hit to your credit.
yeah.
And also everyone is deserving. Everyone is deserving of a home, no matter how shitty your credit score is, no matter how poor you are, no matter how desolate you are. We all deserve shelter. At the end of the day, we all deserve shelter. And it is absolutely devastating that we put housing in the hands of banks and massive multi-billion-dollar corporations. Absolutely devastating.
I do want to move a little bit to solutions, but before that,
Yes.
there is one solution that we have had in our communities for a while now, and that's like building affordable housing and stuff like that. But the problem we have that we run into a lot is people in better communities really protesting the idea of an affordable housing community coming into their like area,
Mhm.
and like they complain that their housing value will go down, but like if you already have your house, like I don't see that big of a problem there
It's
because like
so
I don't think
what
housing should be an investment at this point.
I agree, but unfortunately, a lot of boomers and Gen Xers bought their house assuming it was going to be something that they would sell eventually. So I think in the 50s,
Well,
and
why don't
50s,
they? Like, it's been
no, they
decades
will
now.
do. They will. They will. What the plan is for them to get to like a certain age and then sell.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like quote unquote retirement age, and then they
Yeah.
downsize. Um, I think that's that's my guess. But I think really it was a massive mistake that the I don't even know who pushed it. I think like the investment firms might have pushed it, but we used to look at housing like for something for our children and grandchildren. And I think the biggest loss with looking at housing as an investment is no longer looking at it as something to pass down. And I think that's the biggest shame because that's how housing should be. You should pass it down to your kids if they want it. If they want it, you know, not not purchasing it with the intent of selling it off one day. Why it's never made any sense to me why people don't look at at something, like housing as safety and security for their family.
Yeah, it's often it feels like it's often used as like a retirement plan.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Also speaking of retirement plans, I think the boomers are the first generation to do 401ks, boomers and Gen Xers.
mhm.
And boy oh boy, that shit is immediately failing.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm not that surprised.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
stock market with that kind of shit is just too uh is volatile the word?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It 100% is volatile.
It's not reliable to just rely on your the stock market value to like give you your future in retirement. Like that I guess that's probably why I've been seeing a whole ton of like older people working at Walmart and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like do you have solutions for like the whole housing problem or rent problem or stuff like that?
So there's multiple things. My brain's firing off in like multiple directions right now. So the first thing is like letting it's this is a longer solution. Letting the boomers die. Okay. Because they are they are an immovable object at this point.
Hmm.
They are so lead poisoned and brain broken that you can't convince them that housing is a necessity. You just can't. You just cannot do it. Housing is and will forever be to them an investment. And if you can't quote unquote pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you don't deserve it. You should just go on the corner and die already. That is 100% their worldview, and they are not going to change. They're just not going to change. Second thing is, um, we need to, man, a lot of solutions are based around the dismantling of a system. Unfortunately, I think that is what that is the reality of it. Um, I like the
It's
rent to own idea. Really, I think that's like the softest, least radical of my ideas. Rent to own.
mhm.
I think that is one of the more accessible ways we can get people into housing because I call it the Tom Nook model, where you're not necessarily pressured to pay, but you do. You eventually pay it off. And I like that. I like that model where you're like, okay, I have money, and I'm gonna give whatever the government this money. I'm not a fan of the fact that we have somehow allowed private banks to own all these homes. Essentially, it
Mhm.
is one of the least talked about things when talking about housing, and it's probably a very radical thing I can see. Where why are we paying our mortgages and a down payment to a private bank? Like it's when did we allow this? When and why did we allow this?
Yeah.
But and then
Before you move off of the rent to own, I do want to point out that like there are some instances where they do rent to own for mobile homes, and
yes,
like if you go into that, like you're not gonna own the land that's underneath that home, and
which
like we were saying
get rid of that
earlier.
stipulation. Get rid of that stipulation. Why, like, it's such an insane thing that they get to that a big mega corporation gets to tie your hands behind your back for that. Like,
Yeah.
why? I just
Although there is this community that I heard about that pulled their resources together, got a loan collectively, and bought out their the land that they were living on,
oh
and basically owned the park themselves.
oh that's must be a very difficult thing to do though.
It's gotta
I
be,
guess
yeah.
I guess another very passive, not passive, but a very more accessible solution would be um, tenant unions.
Oh yeah.
You need to get I don't know how you're going to do it outside of an apartment building, obviously, but and it's very difficult for the normal person to collectivize like that. So be cautious, I guess, of your neighbor, your neighbors in America. They're a little skittish. They don't know who you are. Maybe try to, if you're gonna organize a tenant union, try to get to know them a little bit first. Don't just throw it in their face immediately. Be like, hey, the tenant union. Maybe try to get them a little comfortable. Be like, hey, how are you? Say try to strike up conversations with them if they're into it. Obviously read the room a little bit. Don't force yourself onto people who aren't receptive.
You
But
might actually be able to use the same tactics that you would use for workers unions and stuff like that. Like just get to know your neighbor.
yes, yes, yes,
Definitely. Like I know in America we hate talking to other people around us. But
yes.
like
Individualism has rotted our brains, unfortunately.
yeah, absolutely.
And I guess another way you could do that is like, I know this sounds a little silly, but start like a book club or something. Just be like, "Hey, I'm starting a book club," and that's another way to get your neighbors comfortable with you, or whatever interest that you think they might be interested in. I think book clubs are generally the more accessible thing for normies.
Mhm.
So
Uh I know that I have had this like feeling that we should probably do more like community stuff. I've done
yes,
like some episodes on my show about like community building and stuff like that, like
that is
going
very
in
essential.
yeah, going into like uh city council meetings and stuff like that. Like we should definitely like get to know our neighbors and stuff like that.
I think yes, city councils. I think the left. That's. This is off topic, but I do think the left needs to do what the right has been doing for a decade, which is go to town halls, go to city council meetings, go to school, what is it? School meetings. What fucking school
uh
hall?
school council
School council
meetings.
meetings,
I
I
think it's
guess.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Close
yeah.
enough. You know what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah. That's see, these are things, and then if you want to do community building, I don't know. Other than like, a book club, I guess is a good start. See if you can start a local garden. I don't
Absolutely.
know.
Like I love the idea of a local garden because we can also
Yeah.
feed people, you know?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
there are
And
so many things we can do.
it's honestly I don't mean to be doomer, but there's like a food crisis that's coming. So if we can start growing our own food, I think it'll alleviate the despair we're gonna feel in the future. There's from all the droughts to flooding. Like Pakistan, which is now a lake, is like number 3 of, I think the world's cotton. So, also try to learn to sew, because that is a massive part of making clothing, obviously. Cotton. So do try to learn to sew.
So, with the what was it that you said just now?
Pakistan?
It was before that, but I do want to touch on Pakistan a little bit.
What did flooding, droughts.
It was community building.
Oh,
What?
book clubs? I said book clubs.
No, it was after that.
Okay, I don't remember. I'm so sorry.
I don't either. It's okay. But I guess we can go on to like Pakistan, because I do think
Sure.
it's an important thing to highlight.
Mhm.
So what is going on over there?
By the way, I was covering Pakistan when no one else was, so come to my channel, Tina_2 on Twitch. Okay.
Absolutely, go to her
For the
channel,
latest,
subscribe.
breaking news that no one else is covering. I
Yeah,
so
tell everyone what's going on.
So there's 2 things that's going on. It's monsoon season in Afghanistan, and because of climate change, their oh my god, my brain is not working today. Their glaciers are melting because of climate change. So you have these 2 compounding issues and crises happening at once in Afghanistan.
Is there a
And now,
specific place that the glaciers are melting that's causing it to
oh,
happen there?
I don't know about that one, but it's causing massive flooding.
Okay.
50 million people are displaced,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the most. It's probably this is a bold statement, but it's probably the most or the worst climate change incident in history thus far. Um, it is a lake. Pakistan, which was once a desert, is now just a lake. If you look at it on a satellite map, it is such a harrowing thing to see. You see there was initially like a small river, I think, that ran through it, and then it's just like it's a body of water, and I don't know if that means Pakistan it's permanently a body of water now, which is an insane thing to think about. We're seeing in real time geographical shifts, and I don't mean to make this this a doomer podcast, but it's like it's scary. From Hurricane Ida last year, which literally caused parts of New Orleans to just like New Orleans lost ground last year, and no one talked about it. New Orleans from Hurricane Ida literally lost entire pieces of land that just they didn't get back because of a hurricane.
Right.
And now we're seeing Pakistan just become a body of water, and the likelihood of that being permanent. I mean, it's been like that for a month now. It's been a body of water for almost a month now. So,
Yeah, like the effects of climate change is happening in
it's
real time, and
really happening.
like
Yes.
people aren't really talking about it that much.
No.
It's scary because like we're not doing enough fast enough to
And
actually combat this.
there's nothing we can't, like, how, other than like violent action, what can we do as a collective? Forcing these CEOs of these oil industries, what can we do? Like, do we do we become the French? Is that the, like, honestly, like, do we need to collectively do what the French did?
Maybe we
Like,
should post more
maybe we
guillotines
should
on social media. That'll get
post
them.
more what?
Post more guillotines on social media. That'll get them.
I think listen, as much as I love the internet and social media, I think it makes people feel passive.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
Like,
just
I think
joking, really.
no, I know you were, but
Yeah.
it has a point. You're absolutely right. It was a joke. But listen, your joke comes from a place of complete honesty, because people are like guillotine, guillotine, guillotine on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, that's it. That's it for the day. There's like very little incentive for collective action. Like you look at how how did we respond when women lost their right to fucking have an abortion? We got a little upset, got a little angry wangy for a couple days, and then we're like, okay, back to Twitter. Like it's just there
To
is such a passive attitude in America
to be
that
fair, there are people on the ground doing things about like the whole Roe v. Wade thing. Like,
absolutely, and respect to those people, they're
yeah.
doing great work. But what I'm talking about is something more along the lines of what happened post George Floyd. And I understand there is probably an exhaustion post George Floyd. Um, that was like a full year that people protested. If like, and I get like, and nothing happened. And I understand people being like, okay, whatever. But it feels like that's just like the thing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
And I know I've been to protests. I know that they're tiring. I know that they're exhausting. I know the planning of it. You're standing outside for hours at a time every day and you can't do that. But there's no other options. Fuck it. General strike. Fuck it. Burn down put in a parody your city hall. Like there's just like there's a I don't know. I don't know. I guess the good thing that the government did was get rid of 10K student loan debt, but I heard that was being challenged in court, and my god, if that gets reversed, they just these fucking elites are asking for this, okay? They're fucking asking for it. It's
So
like
before we get too violent with our language,
in a parody. They're asking for it in a parody.
um, in Minecraft,
In Minecraft. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm talking about GTA, obviously. I would never advocate for this, that's
that's a
you
violent
just
action,
just protest. Just be peaceful protesters, okay? Don't do anything bad. Be
I
good little boys and girls.
I do think that a without getting like violent about it, I think a general strike would be the most effective thing to do.
I agree. I agree.
A general strike, a renter strike, and stuff like that, like just to get people to actually pay attention to what the fuck is happening.
I
And
absolutely agree.
yeah, and I think the hardest part is to get people to actually get on board with it because we do need
Yeah.
money to live. And it's really difficult to pull something like that off.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but like I think it can be possible if we actually work together. You
I
know?
think I think to tone down my language a little bit, I apologize. I think we need to not we need. I think what needs to happen is people are gonna eventually, maybe my assumption is hit a wall, especially if this 10K gets challenged in court. Holy shit, people are gonna hit a wall and just there's a frustration. There's definitely a frustration that is being felt, and people are tired of paying 40% of their income to rent.
Yeah.
I think it's what 71% of America pays 40% of their income to it's an insane number. Is paying paycheck to paycheck or is living paycheck to paycheck. That's an insane number of Americans who are just suffering for no reason. For the strength of capital. They're paying they're living paycheck to paycheck. So the CEO of fucking Walmart or whatever can boost their sales because this is at the same time as all this is happening, as people's rents are going up, as people are barely unable to afford food, as an energy crisis is impending. I mean, California is both going through a drought and an energy crisis. They're like it is so hot in California, and they're telling people to turn off their ACs because they're just like they're about to do rolling blackouts. Like there's there's going to be a moment where people's frustrations, if nothing happens, they're all gonna walk out. And you see that already with the rising of unions, the
Yeah.
popular, and it's so crazy. Unions are more popular now than they were in the 60s, or just as popular, sorry. And that is not from any propaganda. That's because people collectively have been pushed so hard to the fact that they don't even have to read. At this point, no one has to read Marx, okay? No one has to read Marx. No one has to read the labor theory of value to understand they're getting fucked. They're getting completely fucked over by their employer. And that's what happens when you push and push and push people's wages down and push the cost of living like to an insurmountable degree where everyone's just like, I hate my day-to-day living. Like, no one, and people sense that. People have this, I think the time off that people had in the pandemic gave a lot of Americans a perspective of a life that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, each and every one of us deserves safety and security, and each and every one of us deserves to live our lives out day to day in the way that we choose to. And if we choose to go to work and get low cash, that is because we chose to do it, not because our bosses put a gun to our head and said, work or die, work or die. You know, and I've been thinking a lot about people being able. The older I get, the more I appreciate the time that I have with, the fun days I have, because I see how, my partner has to go to work, and after a wonderful weekend, it's just like heartbreaking because like we all deserve to just like spend our days living in ways that we choose. If my partner wants to take the day off and go have a picnic instead of going to work, that should be our decision. That should be our decision, not someone else's decision to say, hey, you have to come in here and do nothing for a couple hours. Like it's and especially office workers. For all of you office workers out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're forced to come in, press a few buttons on the keyboard, and just come to my Twitch channel. That's what you do. I see you. I see you, office workers.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this.
Of course.
This is a very productive conversation.
Yeah, sorry if I got a little rambling.
That's okay. I think each one of my guests gets rambly at some point.
Listen, you bring on Twitch streamers, okay?
I do.
All we do is talk for a living, and we ramble and we talk to ourselves, essentially.
I've done this to myself. I have only myself to blame.
Well, I appreciate you bringing me on, and I'm glad that we got to do this finally, and I would love to come back on again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead and shout yourself out.
I am the only political streamer on Twitch, Tina_2. There's no one else out there, only me. I'm the only streamer. I talk about Canadian politics. I do cover American politics, of course, but also I cover health issues such as endometriosis, and I cover Indigenous rights. Sometimes I talk about land back, all that stuff. So, twitch.tv/Tina_2 TOO. I'd love to see you around.